Hello, friend, and welcome to the U-Turn podcast. This is the absolute place for you if you are ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you are so proud of. And every single week, I'll be bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all onto the show to elevate your success in your work and also your life, so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities that you are creating for yourself in your career, whether you're in corporate or you're a business owner. My name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international best-selling author of the book U-Turn. Get unstuck, discover your direction, and design your dream career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and it inspired me to start Wise Whisper because my company now has a completely done-for-you process to get your signature talk written and booked on stage. In fact, we've written more than 100 TEDx talks, and we've placed more than 100 clients on stage as speakers for TEDx events. And now I'm on a mission to help every change maker that I know impact millions and share their story. So right now, I'm excited to bring you right into this week's episode. Okay, U-Turn friends, it's Ash here, and you know it is another week on the U-Turn podcast where we are bringing you the most value to your heart, to your soul, to your mind. And today is all about sales. That's why I have Sam Taggart on the show. He's the CEO of D2D Experts and founder of D2D Con. Sam is a man molded by door-to-door sales. He's never really had a quote-unquote real job. He spent his career selling anything and everything under the sun, from painting address curbs and magazine subscriptions to home security systems, solar panels. He's sold over 400 personal alarm accounts, finishing number one at Vivint in 2014. I mean, he's just had such a career, and he's consulted hundreds of companies, bought multiple seven-figure companies, and created such an effective sales training program called D2DU, which has helped thousands of sales reps transform into regular 6- and 7-figure earners. He's the author of ABCs of Closing, and the S and the C's is a dollar sign. We'll put it in our show notes, and the self-experience. And today, obviously, I have so many questions about how can we sell more? How can we make more happen? Everything in life comes back to sales in some way or another. So without further ado, thank you so much, Sam, for joining us.
No, appreciate you having me on the show, Ash. This is exciting.
I know, I'm excited. You know, I have a startup for the first time in like 15 years. I was in business and I had my team and I was just like floating along, and sales was something that I never cared enough about. And that sounds like a horrible thing to say, but I guess what I mean by that is I kind of let money go all the time. Like, if there was a client that wanted to work with me, if they were too hard in my perception to work with or to sell, or I just didn't try. Like I had this belief that if you want my services, I'm great. And if you don't, that's all good. I had this like detachment that probably didn't serve my bank account. And I think a lot of people, they get icky feelings about sales. So what would be your starting message for people who are listening thinking, ooh, sales, I really hate doing that?
And you're not alone. I mean, there's so many times tell people I'm in sales, let alone door-to-door sales is what I've trained for the last 8 years and done that my whole life. And people are like, oh, I could never do that. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you sell your kids on eating vegetables every day. You sell your kids, like you got a date, didn't you? Like, there's so many things that we do, and it's communication. It's a language pattern. We just don't recognize like pattern of influence, and it's a mindset around it. Most people are like, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to convince people. I'm like, what if you looked at it as like, the only way I can serve you is by selling you? Because It's like, we could present all day, we could talk all day, but if I don't transact, you don't buy my product, you don't get my service, you don't hire me for your job, I can't help you. Does that make sense? Like, I the only way I can really help you, like, it doesn't help having a 30-minute conversation about nonsense. It helps you, we can start interacting with each other on a product level, service level, higher level, whatever, like dating level, whatever thing you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
And because it has this weird negative connotation, and that was one of my big missions back in 2018 when I started D2D Con and all the stuff that we do, like, it was, how do we up level this stigma around sales? Because people are like, well, I don't like to get sold. And I'm like, but you sure like buying. You know, if you're listening to this, you sure like going to the store or the Amazon and buying shit like they probably don't eat.
Yeah.
And so you get sold all the time. What do you mean? Like, So what if you made a sales shift mentally to it's a good thing and I'm not hurting anyone as long as I fully believe in what I'm selling. And so
Yeah.
it brings more passion to it.
When you think about businesses growing their sales beyond forecasts, you probably think about a product with very high demand, a very focused brand, and influence-driven marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Shopify is home to the number one checkout on the planet, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout brands like Mattel and Heinz use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/U-turn, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/U-turn to upgrade your selling today. Again, that's shopify.com/U-turn.
I think that also there's so many different struggles that people can have along the way with sales. The first piece is like even getting clear on how to communicate about what you're selling. A lot of people struggle to even say what they're selling. What are your initial thoughts on that? Because I know we have everything from coaches to corporates to, product-driven entrepreneurs listening. And I think one of the biggest things, the mission of my agency, Wise Whisper, is to tell stories that move audiences and heal humanity in some way. And we do that many ways, right? Like we get clients on stages for all sorts of events. We book them. We've booked more than 100 TED Talks for clients. We've written hundreds of corporate keynotes and motivational whatevers. And the story is the heart of everything we do. And I know that I come across people in everyday life that they have no way of really relaying what they're doing. So I would love your opinion, your feedback on how somebody can start to think differently about how they position what they're doing.
Yeah. So think like people tell, stories sell. That's always like a good mantra of mine. Mm-hmm. And most of the time when people sell something, they're talking about all the features and all the tactical, like it has this and this. And I remember I was in solar as a VP of sales at 100 sales reps, and I was networking and I ran into a buddy who was selling solar, and he's like, I made $1 million this year. And I was like, holy cow. I'm like, what panels do you guys sell? He's like, I don't know. I was like, wait a minute. You've made $1 million in commission selling solar and you don't even know the product, meaning the panel type. That moment was like, oh, he just was really good at selling people on what? I'm here to help the planet, save you some money, provide XYZ. It doesn't matter about the efficiency and degradation schedule. I think it's the story of how I'm here to help. So I learned, for example, like when I sold solar, I called this my old man close. And I remember I'd always tell the same story about a guy going to fish. And he's like, this is where my granddad took me, and he was taking his grandson. So this is like generational fishing hole. And I tell the story of how he looks to the left and says, don't eat the fish here. And he's like, what do you mean? And I sold this guy solar, right? And he was an old guy. He's like, well, I'm going to die here in like 5 years. Why does solar matter? And he finally tells me the story, and that's why he bought. So then I used the story over and over and over again. And he goes, I looked to my left where my granddad taught me how to fish, fillet, eat the fish, like the whole thing. And I was teaching my grandson and we couldn't even eat the fish. He's like, fast forward. So I tell this story of how solar's helping the carbon footprint and all this thing. And all of a sudden it brought in a real emotion. It didn't go into like how many trees planted. It didn't go into, I just told a story about this customer that I had set up. And all of a sudden people would be like, oh, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to do a little thing or a little part. And that's how I would bring in the emotion part of selling. Is because people get attached. We call it the death of an individual is a tragedy, but the death of millions is a statistic. But we want to make it about one person, one thing, one emotion to drive influence, to drive transaction. So to answer your question, it's like, how does one craft the stories that I call it picture, parable, principle? So it's like, what principle am I trying to teach? Now reverse engineer this. What's the picture, the parable? And then what principle can I pull from that? Or what objection can I overcome from that? Or what value prop can I build into that? But it always needs to start with what story can I bring into to create the emotion instead of getting to the weeds with the tactical feature set?
So can you give somebody an example of how that could look? And extra challenge here, I think a lot of people who start a business, they don't have any customers yet. And one of the things that helps you sell is testimonials, customer stories. How do you be in integrity, sell something you know you can do it well, but you don't have customers to talk about? How do you craft a story from that?
I have a book coming out. Penguin Random House is a publisher. It's on pre-sale right now. It's called Eat What You Kill. So I would highly, highly recommend going and getting Eat What You Kill. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the things, and pre-order that. But like the concept when I coach businesses, I've coached now over 1,300 companies and, I've been around for 8 years in the coaching space. And what I would tell you is go sell your first 10 customers. Like so many people call it death by business cards. They have to have the perfect website and the perfect shirts and the perfect logos and the perfect testimonial videos. And they spend all this time and energy. I'm like, how about you just go knock, cold call, go find your first X amount of revenue and not be afraid to go hunt. Eat what you can. Don't wait on some SEO guy to build your campaign for 7 months. First entrepreneur advice I'd give, eat what you kill, go freaking hunt. So then you can go get this customer base going and you've got this cold contact, moving and grooving. And then it's how do you make every one of your clients a salesperson for you? One of the greatest salesmen I ever know, his name's Adam Shan, so shout out to him. He would go to a neighborhood and he'd fly out to Mississippi, for example. And he shows up to church on Sunday and he just walks into a random church. He's like, yeah, I'm here. And he does a big donation. He's like, here's $5,000 in your little donation box. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, holy Jesus, who's this guy? Who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm just here, just going to church. I'm spending the week protecting families. I'm like, oh, cool. And he sets up a couple appointments. Well, his first day he sells somebody. It's the mayor. So then he says to the mayor, he says, how do I give you $100 every time you sell one for me? And we're going to make a game out of this. And he turned his mayor. Then he turned the neighborhood 12-year-old kid into a sales rep. Then he turned his next customer into a sales rep. And he started making every one of his customers a game of who could get me the most referrals this week. And how do we use your story? How do I make you my highlight? That great book called Story Brand, but it's that hero's journey and really focusing on, okay, who's my ideal archetype to my character? How can I play the guide? And how do I get them to the magic kingdom or the happy ending? And the more you can pound on that, and then we call it doppelganging. When you say, oh, you're kind of like bridge would be another term. You, archetype of customer, are kind of like this other lady, Susie. Let me tell you a story about Susie. And as you start to gain more and more customers, I call it my customer arsenal I build. So I actually have a whole customer arsenal I give my sales team. And I say, here's the archetypes of each of these customers. Tie it as a doppelganger to the archetype of the customer you're trying to sell. Because if you're selling to an old person that might need X versus a new move-in versus a broke person versus a really rich person, somebody's already been through X versus they're brand new to you and low familiarity, all those are going to be different kind of doppelgangers you're looking for to connect proper story to their scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One question I have around that is probably confidentiality. I know a lot of client agreements are confidential. So I guess the answer to that would be just not saying the customer's name, but just the archetype. Oh, you're a doctor. You were because for example, we've crafted so many TEDx talks and we have a lot of doctors, researchers that come in, and it does really help if we have somebody come in and they're like, oh, I'm a gut health expert. It's oh, we've written 3 talks about gut health and here's one angle we took and here's another angle we took, but we don't talk about the customer and who they are.
Yes. I've dealt with your archetype. Let me tell you about what happened with them.
Okay.
There you go.
Going back to testimonials, I know that you're saying get your first 10 customers. So many people, it feels like they're climbing a mountain because a lot of customers, especially if you have a costly service, they're going to say, can we talk to people who've worked with you? And I actually never have liked that. I understand the rationale behind it, but if a client is paying me, for example, it starts at around $30,000 to work with my agency. And when clients have paid us for our time, it's I want to feel like I'm paying for their time. You know what I mean? If I'm asking for their time. So I feel this sense of guilt and cringiness if somebody wants to work with us and they're like, hey, can you connect us to 5 of your customers from the past? And I always feel oh, I don't want to be in a position where I'm bugging them. Even if they're happy customers with me, these are CEOs, billionaires that really have limited time. We work with a pretty high-end clientele. What's your solution for that sort of dynamic or ask?
So I took this out of a Brian Tracy book, which before, videos was a thing, he was like OG of sales, right? And what he would do, and I actually used this in my early days of selling alarm systems, is I had a folder with flashcards. And at the end of my sale, or I'd go to my customer and I'd say, will you write what you loved about this, sign it. And it's in their handwriting, written by them, signed. And I would flip through this book of client testimonials, handwritten, that I could read to customers to reference guide. But then we got into a digital age, and it was like, oh, maybe I could just have them film a selfie video real quick, send it to me, and use the selfie video and not make this super complicated production. I'm like, hey, can you do me a huge solid? And then the next piece, can I just add you to a list of people? If worst comes to worst, somebody wants to just ask, how did we do? Can I add you to my list of like, maybe I'll reach out to you once in a blue moon if I need to have them touch? Cool. And then I have a list of people willing to talk to customers. Does that make sense? So it's a simple ask at the end of my like wrap up of service, whether it's an install or after your coaching program or after whatever, right? Because we've done, tens of millions of dollars of coaching, right? Like that's our business now, events and stuff like that. So it's like, hey, are you cool with, and a lot of them, they love the clout. They love the like, oh, I'm going to be featured in, it's like, cool, get those kind of people on a list. And then what I love to do is then use a reverse psychology play. Ready? So this is a way to avoid it, but not avoid it. This is a cool line. Look, I will give you a list of 100 business owners to call. I've been doing this for 8 years. I'll let you hand select whichever ones of all of them. I don't care. And you could go through one by one and ask them if this is worth it or not. I'll give you, how many do you want? 50, 100, 200? I have a huge list. What do you want? Or you could just take my word for it and we do it.
Got it. I feel like I've heard from too many people in the questions box for when I post that I'm doing a podcast about sales saying my clients are confidential. How do I overcome this? I'm imagining there's maybe one or two that are willing to come forward, but we are in I feel like, especially for my agency, we've kind of overcome it because we have like 5 clients out of 100 that we're happy to be a point of contact. But we had to work so hard to get those 5 because what we do is so confidential. We're ghostwriting books. Nobody wants anybody knowing about those services.
Yeah.
And so, like any other creative ideas for that sort of person who's listening?
Yeah. So another one is just, how do you accreditate your end? So I went to a Bluebird concert, which was all about, it's the songwriters for Taylor Swift and for, Adele and all these things. And they're singing these songs. And I'm sure Adele's not like, nope, she wrote it. I just sang it. You know what I mean? Like everybody's giving Adele all this credit. But if you look at it, you kind of say, they're not stealing from Adele by saying, I wrote these songs, or Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is going to always credit and thank the songwriter, right? Yeah. Do they want to keep them anonymous? And do they have a few of them? Heck yes, they do.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's not wrong for the person behind the scenes. It is kind of more low key to have a little bit of credibility as a songwriter. So I would simply say, look, we work with some of the highest profile people. We don't name them because they like to be respectable and anonymous. But let me give you a hint. There are people in the realms of X, or the realms of X, and the realms of X. So you could probably connect some dots and probably figure it out and make some phone calls if you really wanted to. But if you were in their position, wouldn't you agree that you would want it to stay pretty anonymous and confidential too? So after we get done changing your life, building your career, and doing the same thing we've done for all those types of people, wouldn't you agree that you would probably name anonymous? And don't you want to have the same footsteps and follow the same journey as they did? Because we're going to do the same steps and same playbooks that we used with them, with you. So let's get this started. And I think that's like where people are afraid of being like, they're like, well, how do I know? And I'm like, I don't know. There's probably a common trend here. There's probably you know what I mean? You just look at like, hey, this, and this, and these are the types of archetypes of people. I can't say specific names. Let them make their assumptions. So it'd be the same move that I'd use in like a door-to-door. Hey, do you know your neighbor, Susan and Tiffany and Johnny? They're just like a little north of here. They could have been like 10 miles north of here. That's all subjective. They're just north of here. But I'm like, yeah, we've been helping out all your neighbors, like Susie, Tiffany, and John. They're just north of here. didn't say how many miles north. We did help a Susie and John, but I have no customers within 6 miles of your house yet, but I'm working on it. You know what I mean? So that like, I'd have to almost let there be some subjectivity and some vagueness that allowed for still the bandwagon, the credibility, the trust building element of sales.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. I love the languaging you just did there. Also asking people for referrals. You talked about somebody that you really look up to. They ask for referrals. Do you have any language for everybody listening that you love to use with dream clients to inspire them to send you referrals?
I have a whole 10-step referral.
I believe you.
Yeah. I was like, oh man. I mean, we teach sales, right? So like, this is where everybody's like, I'm a business owner. I'm like, yeah, but you don't sell shit. Or I'm a marketer. I'm like, but you're still going to sell shit. You can get all the leads in the day. Like, but the referrals are going to be your best leads though. Like you get 50 basic, fill out my form free playbook or whatever lead, or you could get one referral and I'd probably be way happier with one good referral, right? So understanding the psychology of referrals is first and foremost important. So the step one is put them in a state of appreciation. You know, what was one of the main reasons you loved our service? Or why did you get this in the first place? Or, hey, what was the one thing you liked the most about this? Does that make sense? So it gets them thinking, oh, this is why I like this. Because if you just start and say, who do you know? They're going to go, nobody. Does that make sense? Can you give me X? They're going to be like, do you have any referrals? Yes or no? No. I can't think of anyone, right? So that's where most people go. And I'm like, don't do that. That's the common mistake. So put them in a state of appreciation and then say, could you help me out? I've got a goal of doing X. Share with them. I'm trying to get to Hawaii, trying to pay for school. I'm trying to hit my 100th customer, whatever the thing is. And if I do this goal, this is what it means to me. So I'm wondering if you could help me out. I'm looking for, and you describe your ideal prospect in detail. Because the more detail you have, the more it suggests to their brain, their reticular activating system, I'm looking for a car. Why? There's lots of cars. I'm looking for a red minivan. Oh, there's a red minivan. Like you want them to focus in on one thing. I'm looking for someone you know. I know a million people. I'm looking for someone that just had a baby. Now I can think of 3 specific people that just had a baby. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know who to give you when you say, give me someone. But if I say, who just had a baby? What's your mom's name? There's like one answer to that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, so I'm looking for X, very specific. Then let me help you. Do you mind opening up your phone and seeing anybody that you have in your Instagram contacts or your cell phone contacts that would fit that description? And then I like to slide them a piece of paper if I'm in person and say, just write the names right here that fit that description. And I give them a pen and I shut up. It's really awkward when they're like, does that make sense? Like they're going to do the thing, where I think a lot of people are afraid to kind of get that presumed. And then I say, look, you know what's so cool? What I call this step is encouragement and validate. Because most people are like, well, if I made a network and I referred somebody and then they didn't like it or that like reflected poorly on me, you then validate and you give confidence to the referral process. So you say something like this. Hey, Mr. Customer, you know what's so cool? The people that connect value to value tend to have the highest influence in their network. You know what's so cool is the people that are able to then refer others and they have such an abundant mindset of like other people could benefit from the same thing that you had. That abundance is that law of reciprocation. They're always going to receive tenfold according to the law of universe, right? So it's so cool that you're willing to connect me to. And I'm using framing language, if you don't notice the language pattern here, of helping them find encouragement and excitement to want to refer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So those are some key. And then the last piece, and I didn't go through all the steps, but one step on referrals that's so critical to get more referrals, they might give you 1 or 2 at the first go. But when you give referral feedback, thanks so much for giving me to Tom. I ended up connecting with Tom. We have a meeting tomorrow. So excited. Hey, I just met with Tom. He loved it. Wouldn't you mind just texting him saying like, hey, you loved it too. Hey, Tom just signed. Thanks so much for the referral. $100 is coming your way. Just wanted to let you know. Thanks so much. You're such an awesome referrer. Who else might you know? They're like, wow, that actually worked. Holy cow. Like he actually met with Tom. He called Tom. He had a good experience with Tom. I'm going to give him 5 more Toms. Does that make sense? And that relationship element of communication post referral give is a very important piece of this referral process.
Okay, I love that. And I also, I don't know, I think a lot about lingering contracts, which is a kind of a shift here, but people want to close sales. Maybe they'll have a sales conversation. Somebody's excited to work with them. And I feel like, how many times do people say, yes, let's do this? And you send the paperwork and it's like, where did they go? Or they say, great, I'm on it. And then they disappear, or they have reasons why, oh, never mind, I can't, whatever. How do we keep a tight ship while also being caring about maybe, hearts are changing, stuff like that?
Great question. So obviously I wrote a book called ABCs of Closing, and I've closed millions and millions of dollars of high ticket coaching for multiple 6-figure contracts, all the way to event tickets, and sold everything on its own. Best practice, ready? You've got them on the phone right there. And let's say you're selling, I'm going to use you as an example. I'm coaching you. Ash is selling a $30,000 minimum contract to get working with her. I would say, the cool part is we're going to send you over the paperwork. It's just going to have everything that we talked about right here. We take over a deposit. We get your credit card information over the phone, and then you can submit a wire or do ACH for the rest of the 30,000. But I just basically lock in your spot, get the process started, even though you might need, it's going to take you a minute to probably send the wire, do ACH deposit and transfers and stuff like that. But I want to get things rolling as quickly as possible. So I just take $1,000 deposit over the phone. I just need a basic credit card, and then we'll shoot you over the email and make sure you get all that stuff signed. Okay.
Yeah.
And and then I say, what's the best email to send this all over to? I'm going to send over a receipt for the deposit as well. I just need your card number. What's the best number for that?
Okay. So some people feel on the spot if they haven't signed paperwork or seen paperwork before they make a payment. What's your way to kind of like ease their nerves?
So just say, look, everything that we put in, we discussed over the phone or in the proposal, everything we talked about is going to be clearly written out in the documents. So you'll have all that. And if anything changes or needs any adjustments, just let me know. I think we got it dialed though. We've done this over and over again. Like I said, we just get a deposit, and then I can take that all over the phone. And then, like I said, over the next week or two, we'll probably be able to collect all the final payments, because sometimes it takes a minute to verify our ACH or to get the wire process and things like that. But I want to get things moving right away. And there's a lot of steps on our back end team it takes for us to make sure you have the best quality customer experience, and to ensure that, like I said, I just want to get that process started today. So let me get your card number and we'll get that thing rolling and reclose. And so many times, this is where most people, they go people talking to people. Okay. And I'm going to call these 2 languages. Yo hablo español. I had to learn Spanish. And it's like a whole different language, right? Sales is its own language. So I call it alien language, sales language, speaking to natural human language. If you have human language talking to human language, your nervousness and you're like, I don't want to pressure them, or I don't want to lose this, or what if they say no, or what if blah, blah, blah. You almost have to shut that off. And I call it selective hearing. And you have to be a little bit more like, I'm talking sales language patterns. You don't even see what I'm doing. And I'm closing this, I'm guiding this, I'm moving this because it's what's best for you. And I know if I let you go wiggle around and you go back and do this and you put it on the desk for the next 3 weeks, it's never going to happen. I'm going to give you piss poor. I'm going to forget about you. You're going to forget about it. We're never going to do this. You have to internally think this way.
Yeah.
So you have to say, my sales language pattern needs to be strong enough, nice enough, with conviction enough to move this thing along. And I hate how so many call it salespeople, they have a bag of maybes they're carrying around like Santa Claus, being like, yeah, one day I'll get all these sales, and their pipelines are so big, but their closing percentage sucks. Don't be that kind of person. Be a closer. And a closer is somebody that says, I'm going to get a commitment. I'm going to get a signature. I'm going to get payment information, because that's what I'm doing. Because I can't help you until I close you.
Right.
And if you're somebody that's in a pattern of a bunch of maybes and a bunch of callbacks, sorry, you got to have a little bit more thick skin on this and go for it, would be my encouragement. Have some excitement there.
I feel like some people feel the excitement on the sales call where they're like, oh, this customer really wants to work with us, and they seem like such a yes. And then they fall off and you thought the deal was done. I know we kind of already asked this, but how do you reignite the yes and get the deal?
So let's say you didn't get the yes. Yeah. They say, yeah, I'll get this done over the next week or two. And then they kind of start ghosting you, or they kind of go soft. Okay. So in this setting, I like to use some wizardry with some video messaging. I like to, so using your selfie video brings a bit more of a personal touch than just like an email. FaceTime is a powerful move. When some random 801 number or 800 number calls you, or scam likely calls you because you're dealing with a dialer or whatever, right? Like, you don't care. You FaceTime somebody, they're like, I'm getting a FaceTime from this. Who is this? Like, maybe they don't have your name number saved, right? Like, all of a sudden they're like, should I answer those? Like, okay, hey, checking in. And you bring that energy. Let's say the number 3 wizard move. A good line from Chris Voss. He spoke at D2D Con, I don't know, 2 years ago. And I love this line. Have you given up on this? That text or that email, it forces them, it's called a reversal close. Have you given up on this? That will help them reignite themselves, because they either have to say, yes, I've given up on this, or no, which then gives you the opportunity to say, okay, cool, I want to get this thing locked up. We have X goal by the end of the month, maybe throw in a little kicker. I'll take $100 off, or I would throw in an extra this or whatever, because we're trying to make sure we have a big backlog right now, we're clearing out. Just want to make sure we can secure your pricing or whatever you're selling, right? All those different lines. Those would be good wizard lines and tools to use to help reignite.
Yeah. And I know a lot of clients will say, oh, maybe next year. Okay, what month? Like, and we don't want to corner people, right? So it's like, there are some clients that are like, I really want to do this in January. And it's like, great, can we lock in your spot now for January? But so I hear what you're saying. And this also leads me to want to ask you about haggling and cheapening your services. A lot of people will feel like, ooh, if I throw in a free thing or whatever. So let's say you have a high-end contract, a medium-end price, whatever, but you want it to close fast because you want to keep your operations moving. It really fucks up your operations if you have 500 contracts open and people are just closing on their own terms. How do you create enough of a time frame to give people a minute to, after their deposit, look at stuff?
Yes.
If it's a refund. I know I live in the state of California. It has to be a refundable deposit.
Yeah, you can have refundable. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you don't want to cheapen what you're doing, but you do want to create that urgency. What are your favorite ways to create urgency, to be like, hey, how about this? How about that? If you sign by this point, we'll give you this. Like, yeah,
so
just any thoughts.
So I'm going to kind of reverse a little bit more into the presentation, because most of the time when people struggle to close, it's usually one step before the close that they actually missed why the close is struggling, and they have to backpedal, throw in extra discounts, whatever. And so I think of it as 4 building blocks of selling, okay? The first one is you always got to be building value, building trust, building rapport, and building urgency. So think of it as like you're building these 4 things. And if you're not building urgency from the very beginning and you're trying to actually just throw urgency at the end, well, you have to do it now or never. Like, now it just feels so salesy. But if you start with urgency at the beginning of the sale, meaning even in the marketing, it comes from urgency. Now, when you bring it up at the end, it's not as hard. And the narrative has stayed synergistic instead of like, well, we only have 5 more spots. It's like, you brought that up at the very end when I told you a rejection or an objection. And now you're bringing this up. So how about at the very beginning, I call it your pre-frame or a pre-close right initially in your conversation. Hey, the purpose of this meeting is I'm going to go through what we offer. I'm going to go through how it's going to help you. I'm going to go through the pricing. I'm going to answer all of your questions so you can feel you can make an educated decision today, whether it makes sense to move forward or doesn't. Does that sound fair? Right then and there, I've said, okay, you have all the information. I've answered all your questions, and we're going to decide whether to move forward or not move forward. Either way, I'm okay with that. Does that sound fair? And I've locked them into, we're moving with a yes or a no, not a maybe, not a one day. It's a yes or a no right at the beginning. So I've started some urgency early. Then later on, like throughout, I always want to come off as the needed, not the needy. And this is the common mistake that salespeople lose their power, is because they give it away by being the needy. Please, come on. Like, what if I did this? What if I did that? I make my discounts and offers and value bonuses based on my negotiation is much more in my control because I've pre-framed it throughout the presentation. So when I want to negotiate, they're really clear on what's the terms of my negotiation, whether they want to discount or they want to extra this or that. They know that they've got to give me referrals. They know that I don't deal with that. Like if you want to play that game, cool, call the 800 number, get it whenever. But the people that I personally work with, I do a lot of these. I just don't work with everybody. And so I'll pass you on to the team and they're going to do whatever. When you want to call them in 3 months, when it makes sense for you, that's totally fine. I'll make sure to give you the number. I'll make sure to let them know. And we actually make a lot more money when people come through that funnel and that variance. And that's totally cool. So they'll still probably get some kind of credit. I don't care. Like I don't have the bandwidth to go handle every type of pipeline and this and actually deliver and do what I do, which is the very best.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, whatever you're selling, then they're like, oh shit, like, do I want to work with the peons or do I want to work with this guy? And they have to make a decision now. So I make some of my requirements to get my discounts. You got to work with me in my time frame, because they might want to punt things and I explain why my time frame is important. But I bring that up well before they bring this up of like, oh, well, then I'll do it. Can you do it in 6 weeks or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, we talked about my time frame and that's an important piece of this. So I avoid the whole like fight at the end of like, well, no, we got to do it now.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of things in my presentation. We call this fence staking.
Yeah.
So I look at what are my common objections and I'm building a fence so that my customer can't get out of the corral well before I know they're coming, right? So I'm building the fence knowing he's going to try to get out these 3 or 4 different ways, but I'm well ahead of your objections.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And another question that's coming up as I'm listening to all your wisdom here is just around, like you talked about taking payment on the line, like timelines, urgency. Do you recommend somebody who's a sales closer go through the contract on the sales call? Because you were saying, I'm going to give you everything you need to know today to make a decision. Or do you have contracts that have term sheets? Like maybe this is like a 1-pager that is like a summary of the contract. Like how do we, because I would imagine, is there anything you could do even before the sales call to let them know like, hey, you're supposed to make a buying decision today. Like, let's not stick around.
You could have them just fill out a form. Like getting them something like I would do, we call this the order sheet close. So in alarms back in the day, we had to do paper contracts and stuff. And we had 2 different contracts they would do. One was a schedule of equipment for the technician to know what to install. And one was the actual 5-year contract, right? And so, what I do is I do what's called an order sheet of saying, hey, I just need your initial here to say that we got your equipment all correct. I just want to make sure that like that's all good. So just okay right there. Mm-hmm. That one psychological initial gave me permission to go to next step. If they resisted on writing simple initials to say, yes, those products are all correct and I'm zeroing out the equipment chart, you're okay with me paying for all of your equipment because we gave free equipment. They just paid the monthly service of $60, $70 a month or whatever, right? So I'm like, you're okay with us paying for all your equipment and these are the right things that you'd want in your house, correct? Just initial there. So if you build something to where it was a simple letter of intent is what that called, you can call this a contingency agreement is what this could be called. So there's different agreements that you could create in a coaching program or a term sheet or a X. Can you just initial the term sheet I'm going to send over real quick? By you accepting this form, this is saying this, and then I'll send over the final docs later that'll outline everything in more legal terms of what we just talked about. And that'll come in a week or so when I can get my lawyers on it. Does that make sense? Like those types of things are very good. We call it just get ink to paper, but now it's such a digital world to where it's like, hey, can I use your blue finger and just it's like click the yellow box? Like,
totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What you're making me think is maybe like when you take the deposit, there's a way to say something like, hey, I'm going to send you a sheet of paper right now via text during this call that says this deposit is refundable and that the contract price is good for 72 hours. And there's a pay in full bonus of this thing in the next 72 hours. And this is your start date. So I love all of that stuff. I love the feeling that the training.
It could be a simple reply yes to this email.
Yeah.
Call it simple.
I love simple. What have I not asked you about that closing that tough sale? I feel like follow-up is my final question. People struggle to follow up, right? So let's say you don't get money on the line, or maybe the kind of sales you're doing just isn't compatible with that, however, and you schedule another call. You open up the loop again. you're in the follow-up game. Like, let's say somebody doesn't take your directions and they're currently listening now and they're in a situation of email follow-ups. What is a productive follow-up? Because I imagine hey, just check it. Hey there. Like,
Check it in.
yeah, that's not a vibe.
Great question. And it's a double-edged sword. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm in door-to-door. I've sold millions of dollars of stuff. And I told my team there is no follow-ups my whole life. So the double-edged sword of this is when you get in the habit of I'm a follow-up kind of guy, you get in the habit of sucking at closing. Oh. And so does that make sense? So this is an important piece. Because if you have this the money's in the follow-up, which is true. It is a real thing. And we do massive email marketing drips and text drips. And I have a whole 7-10 employees. That's what they do. So I'm not discrediting there is value in follow-up. But I want to put the asterisk of the double-edged sword it does is it takes away your power of I am a one-call closer. I am a savage to avoid the follow-up. Then you turn your follow-up brain on after you're like, darn it, my savage closer brain didn't work. You know what I mean? You have to compartmentalize of I'm a freaking closer because that's what I do to oh shit, we didn't close. All right, what is my follow-up? So now answering your question, because I needed to put this caveat because I've seen it get detrimental for owners, for reps, where they become perpetual follow-uppers. And they miss out on so much business because I'll close 10 times the average rep, myself, because I'm a closer and they are great presenters and follow-uppers. And I'm like, well, that's why I do 10x what you do. You know what I mean? And that element. So the drips are the Gary Vee approach, the give, ask, right? And when it's not just here's some videos. Proper follow-up, especially if you're doing high ticket, $30,000, $50,000 programs, proper follow-up is customized give. Not here, welcome to my eternal newsletter email drips that go into your spam. That is not follow-up. No offense. Yeah. That is called marketing. Yeah. So, and this is where also people get into this. I'm following up. They're in my email eternal drip. What are you talking about? Bullshit. They're not reading that shit. Yeah. It needs to be customized. And it needs to be value to them. So the follow-up might be like this. Hey, reaching back out, you came to my mind the other day because I had a conversation with another lady just like this. It was in your situation and it made me think of you. I wanted to share what she did that really helped her. And maybe that same thing, if you implemented, might help you. How do they not respond to that? You know what I mean? You send them a voice memo of that. Instead of email following up, it's no, it's you came to mind for this reason. And this is why I thought I'd help you out. And if they see you giving, they're going to naturally feel this law of reciprocation of I now must give back, whether that's in a demo in time or buying your stuff.
Right.
So that would be my psychological piece to the follow.
Final question, other than where can everybody find you, is I typed a note in the chat to myself, but I think sometimes people lose things, whether it's an asset or it's a personal brand thing. Maybe they got canceled on the internet. Something happens and they have something that was really important for their sales that's gone. So for example, I had a friend whose Instagram profile, they thought it was a spam situation and it disappeared. Stuff like that happens.
It happened to me in January or in December of this last year. My Facebook ads account got shut down for 4 months. So I couldn't even run ads for 4 months. So trust me, I have been there.
Wow. Well, so how do you counter that? Let me give everybody an example for me personally. If you're in the business, my TED Talk I have more than 12 million views on the TED channel. I'm in the top 100 speakers. I do workshops all the time on viral speech writing. And I learned pretty much everything when I worked under Obama administration for speech writing. But the thing that happened to me is most anyone that's doing business in the TEDx space or the TED space, the TED brand does not like you monetizing the success of your talk. So if I am supporting people, getting on the TEDx stage, they took my talk down for a temporary period. There's a temporary period we had to sell without my viral talk. And granted, we used a couple client testimonials, to show people, but it was like a huge loss. People were like, where's her TED Talk? You guys advertise this huge thing. So what would be your solution in a situation like that? Because I think everybody's dealt with some sort of weird cluster where circumstances change and they don't want to lose sales.
I love that question. I think about that. My sister's quite an influencer on Instagram. I have a huge influence on social media, and it's happened to me. And so the best part of the person you're asking is I come from door to door. And so if anyone ever gave me a lead, it was like a miracle. I'm going and cold calling for 20 years of my life. I would say, think a little bit more, how do I look for a cold outreach opportunity? The second reach would be biz dev opportunity and partnerships and affiliates. And like, this is a biz dev opportunity. It's like, hey, can I get on her show and get her audience, etc. So you look at there's a bunch of ways to get deals that doesn't have to be off of a social influencer thing. I look at Tony Robbins and I'm like, his Instagram sucks, probably. I don't know, but he filled arenas for decades. It's like before social media was a thing. And it's called relationships. It's called referrals. It's called, there's so many other doors you could be knocking. I think the problem in today's digital world is so many people are like, dude, I got viral video that just happened to blow up. And that's like, they identify and they build their entire strategy around, look, I made a viral, I have a good following. And I'm like, dude, I hope I'm never dependent on that. I actually am trying to shut my Instagram down. I deleted it off my phone 3 weeks ago intentionally because it sucks people in, and your whole self-worth becomes around that, your whole identity, your whole business plan. And I'm like, I want my identity to be around relationships, real value, real return. And just because you get 100,000 views on a video doesn't mean that converts into dollars. It doesn't mean you built you anybody that cares about you. It doesn't mean, does that make sense? I think this is where the world of digital has gotten so messed up. And I always ask a new hire, a new salesperson, a new recruit that I'll bring on our team. I'll say, if marketing completely shut off and we got hundreds and hundreds of leads every week, it's like, if I shut marketing off, what do you do? And that is the greatest interview question you could ever ask somebody. And I just say, we got 70,000 people in our database. We got Google. We got Seamless AI. You could go find something. You got freaking walk down a strip mall and go find a bunch of companies and go talk to the damn owners and sell them. That's the answer that I would like to hear. Not well, I don't know. It's like, we're door-to-door experts. This is what we preach, bro. You better answer this wisely. And I think that's where a lot of people get afraid.
Yeah, this has been such an awesome episode. I loved your answers and I appreciate your time so much, Sam. I have another podcast to pop on and I'm looking at this thinking, oh man, I have more questions for you. This is so fun. What have I not asked you? And where can everybody find you? Where can everybody get started with you?
Yeah, so add the Sam Taggart on Instagram or D2D Experts. I found a lot of companies from different industries. I just started coaching a dentist company because he's like, how do I get my dentist to think more like carnivores? And I think that today's world, people, are looking for more carnivore-like sales strategies, and that's what we're about. So the D2DExperts.com is our website. And then I think this is what's interesting. A lot of people know me as this sales guy, right? But what they fail to ask is all of the shit that goes on beyond the sales. I think it's who are you becoming? And the book I wrote that most isn't as popular is called The Self-Experience. You can get on Amazon. And it's every entrepreneur goes through a journey of finding their own identity and living their own self-experience. And I think that's something I'm super passionate about. And I think where most people get mixed up in life is in priorities and in imposters' wants, meaning they think they should be and they have to be and they should be, you know what I mean? This is how life should look. And this is the time I should be working and the amount of money I should be making. And, they have this comparable game that they're stuck in this box, right? And I think the journey of unlocking that box has been the greatest freedom. Sales just happens to be part of unlocking a box because I was never dictated of what I should be paid. I always dictated my pay since I was 11. Mm-hmm. And what do you need to do to be unlocking your box so that you can start to reprogram and unlearn some of maybe these imposters' wants and ways of thinking? And that's something I'm super passionate about. So thanks for asking that question, by the way. That was
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone, I hope you sell your little face off and smile while you do it. Brush it, fill that bank account, make service, make art in the world, make an impact in the world. You are selling something because you have something to do. You have something to offer. And that is the vibe. So thank you so much.
Thank you. No, guys, you have such a great host. She's such a good at interviewing. And hopefully I could provide some value. Again, feel free to reach out, here to serve however I can.
Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show because, as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we are getting clients booked for the TEDx stage.